Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you had a good lunch. Keep you comfortable while I continue. So, first two slides I'm presenting to you are here just to give you an indication of the scope and scale of the Sodexo organization. It'll have more context when we go through some of the slides as we go through the presentation. So, that's how big Sodexo is. So 80 countries, 34,000 sites, 425,000 employees. Now we're talking about ISO 55000 today. The journey that we have taken as an organization to achieve that standard in a global organization of this scale. That standard is about asset management. Asset management is about technical services. And Sodexo, if you put it into context with technical services, we have a business of 1.75 billion euros in technical services, covering the majority of those 80 countries, and employing around 25,000 employees in technical services across the world. We're a big organization. 6 years ago, when I joined the organization, the challenge was we deliver technical services, we deliver it regionally, we don't have any process standard, we do it in different ways for different clients, in different geographies, different countries, employing a wide range of skills and capability in doing so. So the challenge was, how do we standardize what we do? And with the invent of ISO 55000, which was at that time in its inception, it became the ideal vehicle for us to choose. Some of the challenges that we faced, and that's what this presentation is going to focus on today, it's the challenges and lessons learned. So if you're representing a major organization with a scope and scale that I'm talking about, you'll be able to recognize some of these challenges. So firstly, we all know that to be successful with a project, a transformational project, you need very strong leadership. With strong leadership, you need to build a team. That team needs to be focused to deliver the challenge. And of course, by having those two factors in place, you can end up with some success. We shall see. The team, consider the company. The investment that's required to deliver a standardized process framework across 80 countries with a global organization, technical services amounting to over 1 billion euros. The team had to be representative of all of those regions globally. You had to have advocates, because those people needed to go back into the business to communicate about the benefits of what you were about to embark upon, and participate, bringing their knowledge about how things are done in their regions to the program. Supporting the team is a plan. Clear, broken down plan into stages, clearly measurable, so we could report back to the board against the progress, the amount of money we were spending, and the implementation challenges that we were facing. Second point, in a major organization, you have to make sure that the message internally is very clear. People cannot be saying different things about the program or the journey that you're about to embark upon. It has to be aligned with an ambition. The ambition has to be clearly communicated throughout the company. So we created an ambition. The ambition was to take us from where we were as a technical service provider to being the asset manager for the client, the partner, where we could provide the intelligence, the competence, and the capability to partner those organizations on their journey towards implementing standard processes, but more importantly, to realize value from the better management of assets. We are, after all, a service organization. Again, positioning for your internal organization, what do you mean by asset management? Around the globe, some of you are experienced from various parts of the world. You'll know that hard services, technical services, asset management, maintenance, technical operations are all terms that we use. So it's important when embarking upon a journey that you define the terms, you define the definition of what you mean by asset management, technical maintenance, asset life cycle, and how it relates to the core business that you are responsible for, providing services in an integrated facilities management market to various clients. Across the world, the contracts and the nature of the contracts that we were responsible for, as many outsourced organizations will find, vary in scope, scale, and complexity. Whatever framework we had to implement to meet our challenge of implementing a standard to meet ISO 55000 had to be scalable. It had to recognize and be able to be implemented either in part or in full to recognize those different contract scopes and scales. We had to put what we were doing in terms of client context. So you can't go talking to a client straight off about just asset management. You have to relate it in business terms to the client. So we had to define, again, in client terms, what we meant by what we were doing, what it meant for the organization, what it meant for the service provision, what benefit it would bring. Organizational maturity was also a factor which needed to be taken into account. This is Sodexo's organizational maturity, not that of the clients. So whenever an organization needs to be defining this global transformational approach, it needs to know how mature its organization is, where it needs to start on the journey. And as we define that journey, we needed to define at every point in every region for every contract where we were on this journey map. More importantly, you need to relate the elements of the journey map to the capabilities and the competence that are required and the benefits and the outputs that you will achieve by implementing the framework of processes that you're about to implement. Again, relating it directly to the provision of the service. I think I'm doing okay for time.
Yeah.
So the biggest...
You have 10 more minutes plus.
One of the biggest challenges any organization faces is really understanding whether its workforce is capable of implementing or enacting what you're about to deliver. And perception very rarely matches reality, as we found. So if you look at perception, look how good they thought they were. And then we look at actual reality, and we see there's a very big difference. You have to be very clear as an organization of those capabilities that your workforce has, so that you know exactly your starting point for the implementation of your new processes and the level of training development that you may need to move your organization along the journey. Global market maturity impacts what the clients will perceive about what you're about to deliver. These are all different phrases that you will see: quality management, ISO standards, approach, people improvements, methods, etc. Every region of the globe differs in its perception, differs in its understanding, differs in its maturity in relation to technical services, as we found. So we have to build a framework that meets the requirements of the standard, but also takes into account the global markets, the maturity, their requirements. So we created building blocks which we could add or subtract from the overall application, the deployment of the framework with our client organizations, so that we met the requirements of that global market. So that covers really the design of the framework and the key challenges. But now we come to the important bit, which probably takes up about 80% of your resource commitment. So 20% of your time is going to be spent designing the framework, taking into account those challenges which I've just covered. But 80% of your time is going to be spent deploying, getting the deployment right, making sure the implementation meets your requirements. So the first thing is, we all recognize this plan, do, check, act model. It's very simple, it's very straightforward, it's clear. We align our process content, the processes that we've developed globally, to achieve the consistency of approach to ISO 55000 across all of our global markets. And you build into the program reality checks in terms of what your markets need, what your clients need. This diagram depicts exactly how we take it from a strategy, working with the client, through to maintenance planning, capital planning, facilities condition assessments, job plans, work procedures and processes, and using building data and systems. Keep it real. These are the measurements that you are familiar with if you're providing facility services. These are the characteristics that our clients are familiar with. And with any organization, these questions are challenging. What is the portfolio and its makeup? What are the condition of the assets? How much funding do we need? What do we prioritize as most important? And these are all market knowledge with relation to what our organization delivers to its clients. It's the data on which our fundamental improvements will be based. Again, we're moving towards keeping simple principles, relating what we're doing to the business output. So every business that we work with, every business that organizations that deliver services work with, will recognize performance, risk, and cost. Asset management is about balancing those three parameters. The processes that we develop with ISO 55000 is about managing those three parameters. Businesses and organizations recognize this. The lesson: keep it simple, keep the principles clear. You can get into the detail, but the detail is supported by the processes you've developed, and it's only an application of the principles. All of these aspects are considered in the processes, which are put down in a book, which is available electronically or physically. It's about transferring that knowledge into the organizations to be able to deliver or deploy the standard processes which meet the requirements of the standard. Benefits. Any program that you introduce has got to have benefits. We specify the benefits at the outset to make them clear, understandable, and so that we can make sure that the expectations of both the internal organization and the external organizations we work with in the provision of what we do, providing services, are clear, easy to understand, and measurable.
Keith, 5 more minutes, please.
2 minutes.
5 more minutes.
5 more minutes. Oh, not too bad. So once we've designed the framework to meet the requirements of the standard, once we've designed the deployment methodology and the approach, we then have to make sure that we make the change sustainable. It's okay just delivering and designing a set of standards for the business, but you've got to make sure it lives and breathes every day. First point, make sure you engage the staff in every element of the journey, from the design through to the deployment. Make sure that they understand exactly what's in it for me. Answer that question. And also make sure you give them the training, support, guidance and materials that gives them the competence to do it in the way that you want to. Knowledge transfer. Can't emphasize the importance of this. You have to make the knowledge available and make it available in an organization like ours globally. It's got to be electronic. It's got to be available at the point of work. You've got to use the latest technology to get people interested and engaged in doing the training and the learning. You have to make the change, the learning relevant. It has to be relevant to the individual. It has to give them experience and competence so that they can take something away with them. There's a lot of knowledge to transfer when you're introducing a new program with a new standard across a global organization, and you're trying to do it consistently. And these modules of training are all consistent. They're part of our learning program and available online globally. This is the way that we block it out in terms of the development of the staff. Again, global organization, you need to think about how you introduce such an extensive training program, step by step, block by block. We have had success individually. People have now gained certification to the Institute of Asset Management competency standards. What's in it for me? This has led to us being able to deliver and implement our framework on over 900 locations globally, in 27 different countries, and leads us to some success and a realization of our benefits. You can read those for yourself. I'll pick out some that are most important to us as facilities managers. 100% compliance with regulatory requirements. Greater staff motivation and retention of staff. Reduced failure rates and business interruption for clients. Bottom line, improved reputation, cultural identity, unity, and for the organization itself, achieving awards and recognition as a leading provider of technical services or asset management in the marketplace. I have included in the presentation a number of case studies, but I'm not going to go through every one of them. I'm just going to show them to you. So we have case studies of where we've applied the framework in the marketplace with various clients. And of course, this material is available for you to review as part of the presentation packs that will be circulated.
Of course.
Thank you. So that concludes my presentation, short and sweet, and thank you very much for listening.
Keith, thank you very much for your time.